the county building were voted. There was legislation. It was a resolution, so it took place immediately. So in conversations and after the Republican meeting, I was confused. I said, "Well, we just put a roof on this building. Why are negotiations stalling?" And then, well, maybe not. Maybe we didn't put a roof on the court building. So I heard that from someone. So I wanted to get an official response. So I sent a public records request off to the city. So far, I got a letter saying that it was received. I, at this point, do not have an answer whether a roof was put on the court building and the police station or just the police station. So one would wonder, now let's go with if the court building did not receive a roof. Maybe that could be part of why the negotiations are stalling, purchasing or leasing the building. I don't know. That could be part of it. So I wanted to tie that into this and let you guys, I guess, come into where I'm thinking at and understand where I'm at on this podcast. Anyway, there's that. The roof. We talked about it. It's done. Now, and that the vote, the work session took place on March 5th. The vote took place on March 11th. August 20th, they discussed the lease. This is a long clip. It's about 17 minutes long. I'm going to play the entire clip. It's important discussion about the lease and or purchase of the building, and I think you guys would want to pay attention to this because this is what's going to be on the agenda September the 23rd, Monday. Here we go. Let's play that clip now.
Next up is item 3K, which is the municipal court building lease renewal.
Yes, we've heard some discussions regarding this. We've heard presentations from members of the court in various forms, judge, clerk of courts, and staff. And we've had meetings with county officials. Up until recently, it looked like the original, and this is kind of a 2-year project regarding what the county is going to do with its municipal courts. There was original talk that there was going to be consolidation. Then there was announcement that, no, they're going to maintain the 2 divisions. There was discussion and approach from the county to purchase the court building. We began negotiations with that. It seems as if the county has changed directions again. They have now approached and said they are no longer interested in obtaining our parcel. However, they want to engage in a short-term lease for the property. We've got a couple of options in looking at that approach, whether we look at accepting a short term and, quite frankly, risk not knowing what the status of having the court in the community is, or working with the county to make sure that their original stated commitments are to maintain one of the municipal courts within the city. I've recently reached out to the assistant county administrator who's handling it from their end, and he says that they are open to any and all suggestions and proposals, other than they are not interested in purchasing the property. And I believe that I'm not sure if their relative timeline is different because they've got a different plan. They haven't shared any additional information either with us or, to my knowledge, anybody else that was involved in the large working group with the study and review of court operations. So with that, we can look at a possibility of either entertaining a lease, various time, short term, longer term, up into and including perhaps securing our position of purposefully building that building for a court to service our citizens and the citizens in this area, and also showing benefit for having access not only for our police officers but our citizens for the various things, whether it be civil court or, unfortunately, if you get a ticket or something, and you have to go to court, to perhaps consider giving the building itself, but maintaining control and ownership of the land. And also with provisions of so long as it is operated as a court or whatever. So they are open to any and all possibilities, and the discussion would be to have the city's response back to them be what is in the best interest of the city and try to negotiate those interests into this particular deal.
Okay, so the court being here obviously serves as an advantage to our residents. Being that it is close, it's local. If our residents get a ticket, they don't have to travel to another court someplace else that the county may be looking into. I'm assuming there's also then a benefit to having it close, just from a perspective of the police officers who have to go to court every day or whatever. So I'm not interested in seeing the court move, but I'm also not interested in being taken advantage of based on the building that's there. I've heard people from the county courts be here, and everyone says, "Oh yeah, they're all very interested in the municipal court system and keeping the court systems where they are." So I am a little concerned that not wanting a long-term lease or not interested in purchase the building makes me wonder what the long-term commitment is in keeping a municipal court in the city of Heber Heights. So I think we all need to consider what the implications of a short-term lease would be and what their long-term plan is that they probably haven't shared with us at this point. Mr. Shaw?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Rob, I'm going to assume, but I'm going to ask the question anyways, that during our conversations with them, previous and current, we've been very open and transparent about the fact that we want them to stay here. We want them as a community partner. And here's the building, here's the condition, here's the lease. We've been pretty open about that, have we not?
Yes, not even recently, but previously on renegotiation of lease terms to make sure that it is most advantageous for the county and for the city's position. I believe there's actually been resolutions passed previously in support of that.
And that's the same information I have. I'm going to make a request, Mr. Mayor, that you draft a letter to the county administrator, not the assistant administrator or his secretary or whoever, but to the county administrator, asking what is their plan. Are they going to stay here in Heber Heights? Are they going to go to Trotwood, New Lebanon? I think it's time for them to be transparent in their decision-making paradigm and not leave our community and our residents in this region hanging out to dry. Because we've been very transparent in our communication, in my opinion. I believe it's time for them to show some transparency and ask that very simple question: what are your long-term plans? Because again, that's going to change the decision. If their plan is to only be here for 6 months until a new facility is built and they're going to go, well, I think they owe us that piece of information, not hide in the shadows. But that's my recommendation, is for you to draft that letter up and make communication with the county administrator, either through the city manager, some way, shape, or form. But I think that's a key piece of information before, in my opinion, we talk about any type of lease renewal.
Okay, can certainly do that. Any other questions or comments regarding the? And Rob, what is the current lease? What are we currently doing with them?
Certainly, the primary lease ended, and then there was a credit because of the way that the lease was structured. They covered the debt service plus an estimate, call it escrow, for operational costs. There was a credit because they had paid ahead, and they have worked off of that credit. Call it an extension, just basically carrying that on. The proposed extension would be to basically keep that agreement that would have the month-to-month operational expenses until such time that a permanent lease in value or transfer or whatever it might be. So when we were originally in discussions with them for acquiring the property, that's what we did. That extension is up at the end of September, I believe. Yes, the end of September. So we would need to either extend that agreement. Their request is to the end of the year. until such time a final lease or agreement can be negotiated, and put that, into motion there. So that's where we are now. We basically have kind of a month-to-month extended, based just on covering the operational costs of the building.
So we're just at the disadvantage currently, not knowing what the county's long-term plan is.
Yes.
For our municipal court.
Yes, we've sat at the table. I've been involved in many meetings all the way back from when there's been commissioners changing hands, judges changing hands, as well as the county administrator, and it's been a pretty consistent theme. And the most recent public and involved working group was that they were going to expand this building by 5,000 square feet. They were going to move out of the New Lebanon location. They were going to acquire, I believe it's the old library spot in Trotwood, renovate that building because their service area, they wanted to focus on where their service area was most impacted, being the farthest edge of the county versus a little bit more central, which makes sense. They keep this as basically maybe a primary location, the other one kind of a satellite. Again, that's kind of the words we're doing around, but that's what the study and the architecture plans had called for.
Those are the discussions that I kind of remember.
Thus leading to the acquisition of the building itself versus leasing it and putting money into expanding it. And within the last month, that has changed.
Okay. Yes, Mr. Rado?
So please correct me if I'm wrong, but as I read through this, I had also noticed it was basically a 3-month period in this legislation. That's pretty much just time to continue negotiations with them to see what they're planning on doing?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Commentary? Mr. Roberts, so obviously this is here as discussion, but so is the recommendation to extend this some type of real short term until we can really figure out what's going on?
Yeah, I think it would be prudent to look at the extension for the next few months past the current September deadline to give us the time to approach and negotiate an instrument, whatever that might look like, or make a final decision by the end of the year as to what the future is.
Okay. All right. So just on that point of clarity then, is there any objection moving this on to Monday's meeting based on the small extension that is proposed here so we can figure out how we want to move forward to this long term? I think there needs to be some serious discussion about that with the county on how we move forward and what their long-term plan is to help us make our decision on what's in our best interest. Mr. Schultz?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have no objection to this moving forward and extending this to the end of the year. Just as an additional comment into my requested letter to the county administrator, as far as the county commissioners go, Mr. Mayor, have you been in contact with, has any county commissioner contacted you regarding the court's operations?
No. The discussions I've had surrounding the courts have all been, they were going to keep the courts local. They were all a fan of local municipal courts, not combining the local courts. So I'm surprised at the decision not to purchase the building and expand it and keep that court here. So, but to answer the question directly, no, I haven't had a conversation with any of the commissioners regarding that. I've just always known what the what their position has been.
And Mr. Schomer, I assume that no county commissioner has contacted you regarding the courts either, or am I incorrect on that?
No, not at all. My communication has been through the assistant county administrator, and when we had discussions, beginning negotiations regarding purchase of the building, their counteroffer was, we're no longer interested in purchasing it. We'd like to look at a 2-year lease.
Yeah, I think we as elected officials, taxpayers of this county, should have some answers from our county commissioners on, again, why we're not getting any solid piece of information regarding a court. In my opinion, that's in their purview to review, and I believe they're in those conversations, sit on those committees. It's very unfortunate that Heber Heights once again has seen the effects of our county and not getting the communication that we so deserve. So, Mr. Mayor, I'm just one council member, but you have my full support to